Right. Hey, everyone. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the 22 show by SAS22. We're back after a brief hiatus, and today I'm so glad that I have with me here Ben Roodman. Ben here is a veteran of the partnership space, having been the VP of partnerships at CleverTap and prior to that at AppsFlyer, and lots of roles in the GTM space before this. And today, however, we're talking to him in a very different avatar. He is now the co-founder and CEO of HeyBTW. So today, among other things, we're going to talk about his journey from partnerships to founding, the problems he's identified, what problems HeyBTW is solving for, and have a little bit of fun along the way. So, hey, Ben, really excited to meet you.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's have fun. That's what
Awesome.
co-marketing is all
So,
about.
of course. Now, we started off with talking about the fact that you've spent a lot of time in the partnership space. So, why don't you talk a little bit about yourself, what you've done so far, and then what made you take this leap of faith to building APTW? Or was there a specific problem that you saw through all of these years in your experience that wasn't being solved and you decided to go at it?
Yeah, so I covered a lot of partnership functions from tactical to go-to-market to building new partnership product areas. And in my experience leading partnerships, I was responsible for driving significant revenue. And I did a lot of that through partner collaborations. So in my last role in 2014, I ran 27 partner co-marketing events. Every quarter, we were delivering 30 to 50% of all new business through partnerships. And I found I was having a great time doing it. I found that co-hosting events was a stellar way to get in the room with the right people together, and partners made that possible. And as I dove deeper into this, I continued to write playbooks, go-to-market plans, but every sort of partnership sort of started off the same of where here's a spreadsheet, let's open a Slack thread, let's have a lot of meetings and discussions on how do we do this happy hour? How do we host this webinar? Have a conference party. Let's do a Napa wine trip, whatever it may be. And the details and time consuming process of putting this together just turned into a spreadsheet nightmare. And didn't matter if I was partnering with AWS or another startup or an agency, no one really had this figured out. And I said, well, this is really a universal problem. There's not much intelligence that goes into bringing all the data to planning this event to get the right people in the room together. And that's why I decided, hey, I'm going to build the platform to do this.
And as a career marketer, I totally empathize with what you're talking about. I mean, even if it's not as much from the partner angle, which is a recent development in my life, I've again, seen this problem of having to coordinate with multiple external agencies, multiple external partners, and partnership being an event-driven function as a core pillar of its GTM. I can totally see why what you're doing is quite handy. I have a question out of curiosity before we actually jump into the meat of things. Now, I really love how catchy the name Hey By the Way or Hey BTW is, but was there a specific reason? I think I know what it is, but is there a specific reason why you called it that?
One is just I had the domain. I had it for forever. Like the HubSpot co-founder, just been sitting on some really nice domains. I've sold
Yeah.
a few of them. It was better than unicorn farts. So, hey, by the way, is I tried a social project in the past about 15 years ago under the name
Mm-hmm.
and thought it was great about providing insights. Here's an insight that we can provide you. Hey, by the way, here it is.
Lovely. I didn't know about the domain story, but yeah, the Hey, by the way, has a lovely ring to it. I think the domain thing is absolutely great. It reminds me of my time at Freshworks, and Girish, the founder of Freshworks, is very famous for this. He bought, I think, over 500 domains with the word fresh that started with it so that we could build whatever we literally wanted. But yes, getting back to where we were with you and your story now, this is a transition that we're seeing a lot of folks make these days, which is move from transitioning from a corporate job to founding a startup. What are some of the things that you learned? What things were pleasant surprises? Yeah, I'd love to learn that from you.
I've been fortunate to primarily work at startups in my career and being early at a number of startups, especially at AppsFlyer, where I was there for 8 years. And I always looked for roles where I could be a builder and make a big difference and be entrepreneurial and push things forward. Over time and experience, as an executive, you focus on building eternal alignment. You're a partner leader. You have to work across functions. Like alignment is so important to what you do. And all your initiatives, you need to justify it to quarterly goals, and you're sort of operating within an existing framework while you try to improve the process. Where a major difference I find building a startup is that you're seeking external validation. I'm listening to customer pain points, what resonates, what lands, and then responsible for setting goals for myself. So it's that whole building the airplane while flying reality.
Awesome. So let's dive a little bit deeper into HeyBTW. Now you spoke about listening to customers and identifying their pain points. So, and we briefly touched upon co-marketing and coordination with external agencies and those kind of problem statements. But let's get a little more specific here. So, what's the biggest challenges that you've seen companies face in your experience when it comes to collaborating on co-marketing campaigns, and how are you planning to address it with HeyBTW?
The biggest challenge is event attribution to revenue.
Hmm.
I spent money on this. What is the results? And, as a marketer as well, you spent so much time and effort across departments, across companies, doing all this sort of manual effort, so many details to put on a great customer experience and event. But executives only care about one thing, and that's ROI. And so being able to answer that question is very difficult of having like, where should I invest? What worked for us? And so, having led partnerships at AppsFlyer, an attribution company, I knew this was a solvable problem. That taking sort of every task that I did as a spreadsheet, from account mapping, who to invite, and then, I had to work within our CRM stack. So how do I put these pieces together to measure the actual revenue impact through co-marketing events?
Got it. Now, there are a lot of tools out there. We're famously living in an era where building has become so much more easier. You have vibe coding tools, you have AI, you have a lot of micro SaaS solutions out there, and especially in the GTM space now, there's been a flurry of action in terms of tools that are coming over here. So, how are you planning to make ABDW stand out in this whole spectrum?
It's a great question. What I found is like you have internal workflows that work for you. And where we really thought about this intentionally is to be a platform. How do you work cross company and make collaboration work? How do you bring your data to a conversation that's there? And there's a lot of like tools that do the pieces of it individually. So if I need to, put into my PRM a referral from a partner, I have that process that's there, but it doesn't really cover marketing. Or maybe it's one directional, like here are materials that you need to market my product. And then there's event platforms, and there's not really a standout one, but I like Luma, I like Splash, and they handle ticketing or design really well. But no one has access to them. Like one person, no one has the data, and so you're like downloading and copying it to spreadsheets to sort of manage this. And then everybody has their own project management tool, if it's Asana or ClickUp or Monday, or whatever it may be, and it works great. But in the case of working across companies, people aren't buying into it. You need a platform that intelligently shares data and connects across systems to put that together. And that's our goal with Hey, by the way.
Awesome. Now, you've been around as a founder for some time now. I'm sure you've been trying out, testing out ideas, and kind of been working towards building HeyBTW towards public launch, going all guns blazing. So far, can you share an example of how you've already been helping companies streamline some of these co-marketing efforts?
Yeah. So, we're primarily looking at B2B marketers who are running 25 to 300 events a year. So they have a defined program. And we've been working with design partners to understand their process. And so we're working with someone who's running 80 plus events a year across roadshows, VIP experiences, conference dinners. It's expected that every new event start with a spreadsheet. And what happens is every event they have like a dead end spreadsheet, and that data just entropies and dies, just lives somewhere else. And you put all this effort into an event and you upload that spreadsheet into Salesforce or HubSpot or whatever it may be, and then your sales team never touches them. They don't have the context about what happens. a lot gets lost in translation, and you just really lose visibility when you put it into a black box around that. And, for established companies, they have a marketing budget, a brand. They want to support their partner ecosystems. And typically, if you're targeting the enterprise, it's not just one event. Like I go to this event and someone at dinner raises their hand and says, I want to buy your product right now. Like that just doesn't happen. You need to build a relationship across stakeholders, touch the accounts, and having this sort of multi-touch attribution to connect the dots about how you built a relationship with a prospect. It's just not something that's sort of possible today. And so we took these pain points, we put it into a platform, provide the reporting. A lot of it is driven by AI about the insights to calculate this information. And we've gotten a lot of feedback from running with a live version of our product with B2B startups. So they're using it for their events, growth strategies. These are startups that have an intentional strategy where they're working with larger companies. They want to come to them, present it, and grow and get the right people in the room through these partner relationships. And it's really validating to see that this challenge exists from startups to largest enterprises.
Really nice to hear that you've actually found a problem that hits home and you've been able to kind of work with the right set of people towards building up to where you want to be. Which brings me to an interesting segue. Now, let's capitalize on everything you've done so far, right from your rich experience in partnerships to what you're technically seeing as the future of partnerships, right? So, where do you see the role of partnerships? And perhaps more specifically, where do you see co marketing strategies evolving in the next few years?
So it's an area I love to think about. And I love to think about how AI has changed so much of our lives. Where
Tell me
partnerships is
about it.
about I used to come from the year of mobile. It's no longer the year of mobile. It's AI. It's been here. But as partner professionals, you prioritize relationships, and this is eternal of having those connections. And when you see like AI SDRs have been sort of weaponized, and the customer acquisition costs are skyrocketing. And so across every channel, where companies are trying to be more efficient and they're turning to their partner ecosystems for growth. So it's a really great time. I'm fortunate to be involved with organization like Partnership Leaders, where they've really elevated this idea of a chief partner officer who's in the C-suite alongside the CMO, the CRO, and it just shows how strategic partnerships have been. It's been interesting from like an early stage is that a lot of investors have a thesis around go-to-market, but they won't even touch the word partnerships. But the best companies in their portfolio are driving 30+% of their pipeline from partner source revenue. And a big section of partner go to market is co marketing. And so we're seeing partnerships become central to the strategy as traditional channels get more expensive, less effective. And it's a premium time where people want to go out, meet, build relationships, understand you, how you're going to service their business. And companies that are figuring out how to leverage their partner network have a massive advantage just going forward, even where we are in today's AI world.
Absolutely. I mean, as much as there is I love that you said, this is such a relationship driven space. And I think that for me has been one of the most rewarding aspects of working in the partnerships area. Just been building these relationships with people. I know that's how you and I met. And of course, the fact that there are great communities out there like partnership leaders, which have been a wonderful, wonderful resource of learning, especially for someone who's relatively new to the space like me. So, speaking of learning and the fact that you've seen so much along the way, both in your journeys as a partner leader, as a GTM operator, and now as a founder, solving for specifically challenges in co-marketing, there are a lot of mistakes companies make along the way. I know as someone who works for a company that's in the partnership space, and we do a whole lot of events as well, and we figured there are places where things do fall through the cracks. So, what are some of the common mistakes that you've seen, and how do you think companies should be avoiding these mistakes?
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of potential traps, but sort of the one of the ideas, sort of the mindset about why you're doing this event and which partners. And one of the biggest mistakes I see is that each partners will drive equal number of RSVPs. In
Right.
reality, one partner is doing the load of work. Today, one partner is setting up everything. They set up the landing page, they're doing all the work that's there. But you can split the things like the costs. If you're partnering with a larger company, their brand equity that's there, maybe they're bringing that sort of one key prospect that makes the entire thing worthwhile to them that you just couldn't get on your own. So, focusing on each partner's sort of actual strengths, what they're contributing, what they're able to contribute versus sort of forcing this artificial equality just about number of signups that's there.
Got it. And now let's talk about the slightly brighter side of things. We've talked about the mistakes companies make, but let's also talk about measuring the success of these co-marketing campaigns because, at the end of the day, yes, it's great to obviously celebrate your successes, but you also need to measure it. And as someone who's worked in both marketing and partnerships, I've seen that sword swing on my neck several times. So, what would you say is the best way that companies should measure the success of their co-marketing campaigns?
Yeah, it's you want to have filled rooms, RSVPs, attendee goals matter, but ultimately we're accountable to ROI, no matter how great of an experience it is. And I think what happens internally is there's sort of a misalignment of where companies are pitting marketing who help fund at the event or added field expertise or sales SDRs or partnerships against each other for attribution metrics. And really you want the right people, your organization sort of growing in one direction where everybody can collaborate and, fighting over sort of attribution credit, just doesn't set anybody up for success. And, when I'm thinking about, this, how to measure it today, it's very difficult. Usually a lead comes in and, okay, for the next 45 days, if it turns into an opportunity right now, I'm going to credit my efforts for that. And it's a very limited window and scope. And you need to look broader at your relationship with that account to really understand and measure success and what you're getting from all that effort that everybody in your team put in towards this event.
Got it. Now, regular listeners of the show would know that this isn't just about companies and the work people do, but also about their personal journeys. So, this is a great time for us to talk about Ben and talk about Ben's journey, especially as that of an operator turned founder. So, one of the most fundamental questions that we'd love to know from you is, I mean, there's obviously the highs that everybody experiences. Founding is an incredibly rewarding journey by itself, but there are some hard lessons that you learn along the way. For the benefit of our listeners and viewers, what are some of the hardest lessons that you've learned so far?
I have a great network that I built through my professional career and able to get meetings and talk to folks. And even if you talk to somebody and they outline their pain points and you go build the exact thing that they said that they were excited for and would absolutely use. You come back a month later, they changed their mind. Their priorities have changed. It wasn't their top of mind problem. It wasn't a true pain. It was a nice to have. And so like enthusiasm and conversations, doesn't equal commitment to actually paying for your product. And so it's a really hard lesson to understand of you're getting the excitement, the conversation, to am I solving a true pain? And it takes a lot of re digging to get underneath to answer that.
Got it. And let's also talk about how your day-to-day life has changed. I mean, I'm sure between a corporate life where you have a set routine to being a founder, there have been changes. So, how's that been for you?
My previous roles, they got to a point where they felt structured. Like I knew what this day was, what meetings were, what 8 a.m. looked like every day, sort of back to back meetings, constant travel for conferences and events. And, now I feel like I'm in a position of privilege to be able to have sort of iterative learning. New insights that I find or feedback that I receive, I can test it. I can go in on the next demo call. I can change our website, whatever that may be. And then there's just this sort of like fixing bugs, processing all the feedback you have. It's sort of a constant roller coaster of, hey, I'm trying to meet you where you are, and I'm really motivated to do so. And how fast can I learn to improve my pitch or story or product, everything that's sort of coming at me at once.
Now you call this a roller coaster, right? And it isn't easy. So sometimes it always helps when you have a team or early supporters by your side. So have you worked with a team, or are you building one? And have you found someone who you can count on in this journey for you to build HeyBTW?
I'm very fortunate to have a brilliant co-founder and CTO who makes the art of delivering HeyBTW AI possible. And I really appreciate our workflow and our collaboration together. Just so many good conversations that we're able to have. And he came from his PhD work involving AI software engineer and data science. He was looking at this stuff, before ChatGPT launched. And so it's been really exciting to put AI at the core of everything we're doing since day one. And I'm, you know, tremendously thankful to his work and his effort in explaining so much of changes of things to me and being able to offer sort of input and be able to have the conversations and build our vision together. And then just in general, just so many people that are generous with their expertise, from like we needed a Salesforce integration to people helping with our pitch to personal introductions. It wouldn't be possible without so many people that are willing to offer assistance and helpfulness. And that's one of the benefits, as well as being based in San Francisco, is that a lot of people are really interested in what you're doing.
Absolutely. I think I found that ecosystem to be extremely, extremely rewarding. I mean, I've seen people go out of their way to help, and that's amazing to experience that kind of generosity. So this is an amazing point for me to now make this conversation a little more personal. I know you talked about your CTO and how great it's been having someone like him by your side, and how that's helped you realize your vision. But I'm sure there are other people who also help you find this inspiration along the way. So, who or what is this thing that you found most inspiring to help you be where you are today?
In how I naturally operate is I try to be helpful to sort of add value, whether that's like a volunteer, with something I'm doing in my personal life or, from a professional experience as well. And I find, it's not about, sort of hustle culture or what can you do for me. It's, building connections between people, understanding how, organizations, operate. Like, how can I help sort of bridge the divide? And, if you, and I like putting the pieces together of hearing different organizations, different challenges that people have had. And if I have a way to help find a solution to pay it forward to help them in some way, I'm happy to do it. And that brings me sort of gratitude in the work that I'm able to do.
That is indeed heartwarming to hear that this kind of niceness actually exists out there. Now let's talk about something that's a little more fun. One of the things that we always like to get our guests to talk about is books, podcasts, or any other learning resources that you come across that have been a game changer for you. These could be related to work, not related to work, whatever it is. We'd love to hear from you.
I was a bit behind the curve starting the series, but Brandon Sanderson, The Stormlight Archive, and
Yeah.
the ever spending like Cosmere Universe on audiobook has been a trusty companion. So I don't know if I've read these or listened to them, but they are
I'm a
massive.
fellow Brandon Sanderson fan as well. In fact, I have the Miss Bond trilogy. There's a virtual background right now, but behind me, I have a bookshelf, and the trilogy sits right there. So I'm with you on this.
Oh, that's great. And, I sort of missed this. Probably saw Game of Thrones too many times, but I passed the fourth novel. One more to go to book in the Stormlight series. I want to pick up the other ones, and it's just a great escape. I just love the sort of massive world building and expanding the vision.
Absolutely. So much fun to kind of, just lose yourself in that world. Speaking of, let's also expand this to what else you're a fan of, what else you're a fan of outside the workplace. What is it that people don't know about Ben?
Well, if you looked in my garage storage room, what used to be my office is an affinity for restoring classic Lego sets where sort of piece by piece, I
Hmm.
bought like giant bins off of Facebook Marketplace and sets that I only dreamed about as a kid, put them together, sort of walls of parts and shelving. If I had more space, maybe it would be cars, but for me, it's Lego, and it's a joy I could share with my kindergartner who's gotten impressively good at putting Lego together. And I let him play with anything that we put together makes sense. And I'm a huge Lego person and I like systems thinking. And if my co-founder explains things to me in Lego analogy, it's helped me learn something new.
I'm totally with you on this. I think we're the same person when it comes to this. Same problem statement. If I had more space, it would be cars. But for now, it's Legos. I haven't been able to get into vintage Legos yet, but I do keep buying as many Lego sets as I can off of the clearance racks. Because you sometimes find
Yeah,
the
they're really
best that's
expensive.
just about to go off the season, and then you probably won't find it again for some time, and you're gonna have to go hunt on Facebook Marketplace, which I probably don't have the patience for. So I just go around collecting everything that I can. And right now, I think I'm running out of space for Legos too at the rate at which I'm acquiring them. But hey, lovely to know that we share that dream. But speaking of dreams and speaking of looking ahead, let's bring the conversation back to HeyBTW. I know as every founder, you do have some grand visions for where you want to take this company. So let's talk about where you see this going in 5 years from now.
It's a big one. Something we think about is, and I really admire what Figma did for the collaboration process of designers. And I see a similar vision for Hey, by the way, of taking a platform approach to our business. And I looked at the largest enterprises like Microsoft Partner Marketing, AWS, Salesforce, Twilio, to the early stages and across industries and verticals. And there's not this sort of ecosystem intelligent platform that exists. And there's this invisible graph of how deals get happen, of like partners that they trust as part of this. And we want to make this actionable and service it. And so, in 5 years, I'd love for Hey, by the way, to become the standard about how companies collaborate and work together and orchestrate their understanding of their ecosystem and that intelligence.
I'm really hoping this happens. I've got my fingers crossed for you. But let's also talk about in your vast experience so far. I'm sure we've talked about some lessons that you've learned along the way, but I'm sure there's also some kind of advice that you've been able to condense these lessons into. So hypothetically, if you had to advise a younger Ben, what they should be doing, what would be your number one piece of advice?
If you're currently at a startup, that you can't do a startup where you're at a startup. So that's sort of number one. Number two, if you're, in a corporate job, that you're in the best position to research the problems that are facing internally and sort of external organizations and sort of really investigate and start sort of building towards this problem area that you have an interest. And where in my personal experience, I've been doing consulting these last few months to help other companies with my previous measurement expertise, but it's, a fraction of what I was earning before. And, doing consulting pulls you in multiple directions
Mhm.
and giving yourself more time, more runway to focus on the problem space. The more that you can do that, the more you set yourself up for success to go all in and really prioritize.
Great. Thank you so much, Ben. We're nearly at the end of this conversation that we've had with you, and it's been so much fun. Because we have so many things in common as we've gone along the way through this little half an hour long journey. But let's just end this on talking about this one thing you wish everyone you've worked with so far understood about partnerships and co-marketing. What would that one thing you wish be?
I think people look at partnerships as like a magic bullet, and it doesn't work that way. But in some cases, it is a superpower that's there. And the fact that you can drive so much sort of pipeline and opportunity, I don't think co-marketing is on people's language, and I hope that changes. And what I really see is, from partnership job postings is that, the companies have struggled against their competitors without a healthy partner ecosystem. they always make this sort of like Frankenstein role for how they want partnerships to work within a short time period. They're looking for a unicorn who has experience across all cloud partners, who has so many years working at a GSI. And this person's going to come in and deliver pipeline faster than any sales rep, and execute globally with strategy on day one. And this is not the framework. And partnerships is really a growth multiplier. You push the business in new directions and new revenue streams. And co-marketing is an intentional strategy to elevate your partners. You're elevating them at the same time you're multiplying your business potential with larger deal sizes. And so you see these companies that don't fundamentally understand partnerships and they open the same role, year after year, same failed attempts. And, everybody in the partnership community recognizes this pattern and it doesn't help you build credibility with future partners or candidates. So, yes, partnerships can drive significant pipeline, but you need a commitment beyond a few quarters to elevate your partner ecosystem.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ben, for taking time out to talk to us. We'll be cheering on Hey BTW and you and your team from the sidelines. Really, really excited to continue working with you, to continue showcasing what you do to the world. And hopefully, we will see you once again very soon.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care and see you soon.
Bye, everyone.